She crashed her car into a black Rolls Royce. A Mafia boss stepped out and said, "Good. I have been chasing you." The Seattle rain made everything look like a watercolor painting bleeding into itself. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my battered Toyota as I navigated the downtown streets, my heart still racing from the interview that had just imploded spectacularly. 26 years old, and I'd just been accused of stealing classified research from Mercer Pharmaceuticals. Research I'd actually discovered myself during my graduate work in biochemistry. But Dr. Richard Chun, my former mentor and the company's head scientist, had somehow convinced the board that my groundbreaking findings on synthetic opioid alternatives belonged to him. I wasn't just fired. I was blacklisted, threatened with legal action, and escorted from the building by security like a criminal. The traffic light ahead turned yellow, then red. I should have stopped, but the black sedan that had been following me for the past 3 blocks was still there, and paranoia overrode caution. I pressed the accelerator, shooting through the intersection just as cross traffic began to move. That's when I saw it. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, gleaming black despite the rain, pulling into the intersection with the stately confidence of old money and absolute certainty. Time slowed as my Toyota's worn brakes screamed in protest. The collision was inevitable. Metal crumpled with a sickening crunch as my car's front end kissed the Rolls-Royce's rear quarter panel, deploying my airbag with explosive force. For a moment, I sat stunned, tasting blood from a bitten lip and smelling the chemical scent of the deflating airbag. Through my cracked windshield, I watched 3 car doors open on the Rolls-Royce. The first man out was massive, built like a linebacker, with a suit that strained across shoulders that suggested he bench-pressed small cars for fun. The second was leaner, moving with predatory grace, his hand instinctively touching something beneath his jacket. But the third man made my breath stop entirely. He emerged from the rear passenger door with unhurried elegance, tall and powerfully built, probably in his mid-30s. His charcoal suit was obviously bespoke, tailored to showcase a body that suggested disciplined violence held in careful check. Dark hair, swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins. All sharp angles and aristocratic features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so clearly dangerous. When his eyes found mine through the rain, they were the color of aged whiskey, warm and cold simultaneously. A slow smile spread across his face, predatory and satisfied. I stumbled out of my car, legs shaking, already calculating how much this accident would cost me. Everything, probably. Insurance that barely covered liability. A car worth maybe $2,000 on a good day, and I just rear-ended what had to be a $400,000 vehicle. "I'm so sorry," I began, rain immediately soaking through my blazer. "I didn't mean—" "Dr. Samantha Reed," he interrupted, his voice carrying a faint accent I couldn't place. Eastern European, perhaps, smoothed by years of American education. "Good. I've been chasing you." My blood turned to ice. He knew my name. This wasn't a random accident. "Who are you?" I demanded, backing toward my wrecked Toyota, even though there was nowhere to run. "Adrian Volkov," he said, stepping closer with measured strides. "And you, Dr. Reed, have something that belongs to me." The name triggered recognition. Volkov. Russian Mafia family that controlled half of Seattle's port operations. Arms dealing, money laundering, and rumored involvement in everything from human trafficking to corporate espionage. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, though my mind was racing. "The research." Somehow this was about the research. "Your work on synthetic opioid alternatives," Adrian continued, as if reading my thoughts. "Specifically, the compound you designated state, Route 47. Revolutionary, potentially worth billions, and currently being stolen by Dr. Richard Chun, who plans to sell it to the highest bidder. Which would have been me, except I prefer to work with the actual genius who created it." The world tilted sideways. Chun is selling my research. Not just selling, auctioning. Tomorrow night, to representatives from 6 different pharmaceutical companies and 3 criminal organizations. Adrian's smile held no warmth. "Unless we retrieve it first." "We?" I repeated stupidly. "You need your research back." I need the leverage that research provides in certain business negotiations. He gestured toward the Rolls-Royce, where his two associates waited with practiced patience. Get in the car, Dr. Reed. We have much to discuss and very little time. I'm not getting in a car with a known criminal, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Adrian's expression shifted, amusement giving way to something harder. Then you'll be arrested within the hour. Chen has already filed charges for corporate espionage. The police are likely at your apartment right now with a warrant. Your bank accounts will be frozen, your assets seized, and your career permanently destroyed. As if summoning them with his words, I heard sirens approaching. The black sedan that had been following me earlier pulled up to the intersection, and two men in suits emerged. Not police, but the kind of private security that expensive corporations employed. Choose quickly, Dr. Reed, Adrian said, opening the Rolls-Royce's rear door. Prison and professional ruin, or a partnership with me. Either way, you're not walking away from this intersection unchanged. I looked at my wrecked Toyota, at Chen's security team advancing toward us, at the rain-soaked streets of a city that had just become hostile territory. Then I looked at Adrian Volkov's outstretched hand, steady and certain despite the chaos surrounding us. I took his hand and climbed into the Rolls-Royce. The interior of Adrian's car smelled like leather and money. I sat rigidly in the plush seat while the massive associate, introduced simply as Dmitri, drove with the kind of precision that suggested advanced tactical training. Adrian sat across from me, his whiskey-colored eyes assessing me with unsettling intensity. Where are we going? I asked, watching Chen's security team fade into the distance through the rear window. Somewhere safe, Adrian replied, pouring amber liquid from a crystal decanter into two glasses. You'll need this. I accepted the scotch, surprised to find my hand steady despite everything. The first sip burned pleasantly, grounding me in physical sensation when my mind wanted to spiral into panic. How long have you been following me? I asked. 3 months, he answered without hesitation. Since Chun first approached my organization about purchasing your research, I had my people investigate the situation and discovered that Dr. Richard Chun is a fraud who's built his reputation by systematically stealing the work of his graduate students. The confirmation of what I'd suspected but couldn't prove made my jaw clench. Why not just tell me? Why the elaborate chase? Because you needed to understand how precarious your position was, Adrian said, leaning forward. Chun has powerful connections, corporate boards, politicians, law enforcement. Simply warning you would have accomplished nothing. You needed to see firsthand that your conventional options were already exhausted. I took another drink, the scotch steadying my nerves. What exactly do you want from me? I want State Route 47, developed under my protection and exclusive to my distribution network. His directness was almost refreshing. You get to continue your research with unlimited funding and complete creative control. I get a revolutionary product that will reshape certain markets and provide leverage against my competitors. You want to sell opioids? Disgust colored my voice. I want to sell a non-addictive pain management solution that could save millions from addiction, he corrected sharply. Do you know how many people die from opioid overdoses every year? How many families are destroyed? Your compound could change that, but only if it reaches the people who need it. And that requires distribution networks, protection from competitors, and resources that conventional pharmaceutical companies would bury in red tape and profit margins. I studied him, trying to reconcile the brutal reputation with a man discussing public health outcomes. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who operates in gray markets, Adrian replied. The distinction matters less than you think. Conventional pharmaceutical companies charge $1,000 per pill for life-saving medications. They suppress research that threatens profit models. They lobby against regulations that would save lives. Tell me, Dr. Reed, who's the real criminal? The Rolls-Royce turned onto a tree-lined avenue in Bellevue, passing estates that spoke of wealth beyond my comprehension. We pulled through iron gates into a property that looked like it belonged in European magazines. Modern architecture blended with classical elements, surrounded by manicured gardens that defied the Seattle rain. "This is your home?" I asked as we stopped before a massive entrance. "One of them," Adrian said, stepping out and offering his hand to help me from the car. "You'll stay here while we plan Chen's downfall and your vindication." Inside, the house was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, art that belonged in museums, and technology that seemed straight from science fiction. But it was the laboratory I saw through glass walls that made me stop entirely. "You built a lab?" I breathed, taking in equipment that surpassed anything I'd had access to at Mercer Pharmaceuticals. "For you," Adrian confirmed. "Everything you need to continue your work, completely secure and off any official records. Shun can't steal what he can't find." A woman appeared from the laboratory, wiping her hands on a coat that suggested she actually used the equipment. She was older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes behind frameless glasses. "Dr. Reed," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Dr. Yuki Tanaka, formerly of Stanford Medical School before I decided that academic politics were tiresome. Adrian has told me about your work on State Route 47. Brilliant application of receptor theory." I shook her hand, stunned. "You're the Dr. Tanaka? You pioneered half the pain management protocols currently in use, and your research could obsolete all of them," she replied with a smile. "Come, let me show you what we've set up." As Dr. Tanaka led me toward the laboratory, I glanced back at Adrian. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Satisfaction mixed with something that might have been possessiveness. "Dr. Reed," he called, stopping me at the threshold. "Tomorrow night, we attend Chen's auction. You'll need to be prepared for what that entails." "What does it entail?" I asked, though I suspected I didn't want the answer. His smile was sharp as broken glass. "Pretending to be my property long enough to destroy the man who tried to steal your future." The next 18 hours passed in a blur of preparation that felt more like training for war than attending an auction. Dr. Tanaka helped me reconstruct my research from memory, her brilliant mind filling gaps where my documentation had been incomplete. The laboratory Adrian had built was beyond anything I'd imagined. Every piece of equipment state-of-the-art, every resource available without bureaucratic obstacles. But it was the evening's preparation that truly revealed what I'd agreed to. "This is what you'll wear," said a woman named Irina, laying out a dress that cost more than my entire graduate school wardrobe. Midnight blue silk that would cling to every curve, with a neckline that somehow managed to be elegant and provocative simultaneously. "I'm a scientist, not a model," I protested. "Tonight you're leverage," Irina corrected, her Russian accent thick. "Mr. Volkov's acquisition. The message must be clear. He's claimed both you and your research." I stared at my reflection as she worked on my hair and makeup, transforming Dr. Samantha Reed into someone unrecognizable. Sophisticated. Dangerous. Owned. When Adrian saw me, something flickered in his whiskey-colored eyes. "Perfect," he said softly, though the effect would be complete with one addition. He produced a velvet box, opening it to reveal a diamond collar necklace that took my breath away. Not a necklace, a statement of possession, beautiful and unmistakable. "I can't wear that," I whispered. "You can and will," Adrian replied, moving behind me to fasten it around my throat. His fingers brushed my neck, sending involuntary shivers down my spine. "Tonight, everyone in that room needs to believe you belong to me completely. That your brilliant mind, your groundbreaking research, and your loyalty are mine alone. Can you play that role, Dr. Reed?" I met his eyes in the mirror. "I can play any role necessary to destroy Richard Chun." His smile was approval and promise combined. "Then let's begin." The auction was held in a private estate on Mercer Island, the kind of location that didn't appear on any public records. Adrian's Rolls-Royce joined a procession of expensive vehicles, Bentleys, Maybachs, armored SUVs, depositing wealthy criminals and corporate executives who'd come to bid on stolen genius. Adrian kept his hand possessively on my lower back as we entered, a gesture that should have felt degrading, but instead felt strangely protective. I could feel eyes assessing me, calculating my worth as surely as they'd calculate the value of my research. Richard Chun stood near a makeshift stage, his expression smug until he saw me on Adrian's arm. Color drained from his face, replaced by fury and fear in equal measure. "Samantha," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "What are you doing here?" "Dr. Reed is with me," Adrian said coldly, his accent becoming more pronounced. "I believe you have something to auction that rightfully belongs to her." "The research belongs to Mercer Pharmaceuticals," Chen replied. "And Dr. Reed is facing criminal charges for attempting to steal corporate property." "Fascinating," Adrian mused, "because I have documentation proving that State Route 47 was developed entirely during Dr. Reed's graduate work, before she ever set foot in her laboratory. I also have testimony from 6 of your former students detailing a pattern of academic theft spanning 15 years. Chen's composure cracked. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Adrian's smile was predatory. "Shall we call the FBI agents waiting outside and find out? Or perhaps we should discuss this privately, like civilized people." The auction paused as Chun led us to a private room, his confidence eroding with each step. Inside, Adrian's associate, the lean one named Alexei, was already present, along with 2 men in suits who radiated federal authority. Dr. Richard Chun, one of the FBI agents, said, "You're under arrest for corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy to sell controlled substances." I watched Chen's face cycle through denial, anger, and finally terrified acceptance as the agents read him his rights. Adrian had orchestrated everything. The auction had been a trap, and Chun had walked into it willingly. "Ow!" I asked as Chun was led away in handcuffs. "I've been documenting his crimes for months," Adrian replied. "The auction gave us enough evidence to guarantee conviction. Your research is safe, Chen's reputation is destroyed, and you're free to continue your work without interference." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt unsettled by how effortlessly Adrian had manipulated everyone, including me. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Adrian said, his hand finding mine, "we discussed the terms of our partnership." 3 months later, I stood in Adrian's laboratory, our laboratory, watching test results that confirmed what we'd suspected. State Route 47 was everything I'd hoped and more. Non-addictive, highly effective pain management with minimal side effects. It could revolutionize medicine. "The FDA approval process will take years," I said, frustrated by bureaucratic reality. "Then we'll pursue alternative routes," Adrian replied from the doorway. "Clinical trials in countries with faster approval processes. Compassionate use protocols for terminal patients. Dr. Reed, your compound will reach people who need it, I promise you that." I'd learned that Adrian's promises meant something. Over the past 3 months, he'd been transforming his organization's focus, divesting from weapons, investing in legitimate pharmaceuticals, building distribution networks that could deliver medicine to underserved populations. "You're changing," I observed. "Your whole operation is changing." "You're changing me," he corrected, crossing to where I stood at the lab bench. "Before you crashed into my life, I was content with gray markets and profitable violence. Now I'm building something that might actually matter." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone with surprising gentleness. "Dr. Samantha Reed, brilliant scientist who accidentally rear-ended my Rolls Royce and changed everything. Will you marry me?" The question should have shocked me. Instead, it felt inevitable. "You're a criminal," I said, echoing my word from that first day. "I'm a man who loves you," Adrian replied. "Who wants to build an empire worth inheriting with a woman brilliant enough to revolutionize medicine and brave enough to crash her car into fate?" I thought about the woman who'd fled from Chen's accusations 3 months ago, terrified and alone. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more decisive, and absolutely certain about one thing. "Yes," I said, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted like scotch and promises. "But I'm keeping my own lab, and State Route 47 gets distributed at cost to anyone who needs it." Adrian's laugh was warm against my lips. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Dr. Volkov." The name sounded right. Perfect. Like everything that had come from that rainy Seattle intersection where a desperate woman crashed into her future and found something better than safety. She found partnership, purpose, and a dangerous man who'd been chasing her long before their cars collided, chasing her to save her from people who'd never understood her worth.